Imagine getting a text message from your best friend.
Okay.
It sounds exactly like her, you know? The tone is right. She uses the exact same emojis she always does. She complains about the exact same things.
Right. It feels completely normal.
Exactly. But what you don't know as you're sitting there texting back and forth is that your friend has been dead for weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the person casually replying to you from her phone, the person you're chatting with, is the person who killed her.
It is a terrifying reality of the era we live in, honestly. We leave such a comprehensive digital footprint now that someone else can just step into our digital shoes. They can keep us alive in the cloud long after our physical presence is gone.
It's chilling. And today, we are taking a deep dive into exactly how a digital ghost like that is created. And more importantly, how it gets caught.
Yeah, we're looking at the harrowing Shraddha Walkar case from India.
Right. But I want to be clear with you right off the bat. We aren't just here to recount a true crime timeline. We have an in-depth crime analysis and transcripts. But our mission today is to look at the psychological machinery behind all of this.
Which is so important.
We're going to examine the deliberate, systematic anatomy of a toxic relationship. We'll look at the extreme neuroscience of compartmentalization and how the invisible architecture of our modern digital lives can just completely unravel what someone thinks is the perfect physical alibi.
Because to truly understand the forensic trap that eventually closed around Aftab Poonawalla, you first have to understand the psychological trap that closed around 27-year-old Shraddha Walkar.
Right.
You really have to look at the foundational groundwork of isolation.
So let's start there. The year is 2018. Shraddha is, she's incredibly driven. She has a degree in mass media, and she's basically looking for a way out.
Out of her hometown, right?
Right. Yeah. She grew up in a small town in Maharashtra called Palghar. And her home life was just incredibly tense. Her parents, Suman and Vikas, they had a deeply strained relationship.
I think her father even lived apart from the family quite a bit, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So Shraddha was mostly living with her mother and her younger brother, Srijay.
Which, from a psychological standpoint, that creates a very specific kind of vulnerability.
How so?
Well, when you grew up in a highly fractured environment, your baseline for what a stable relationship looks like is skewed. It's totally off.
Right.
So naturally, she decides she needs to escape that environment to really find her own footing.
And she makes a choice so many of us can relate to. I mean, she moves to a massive, fast-paced metropolis, Mumbai.
Right, a huge change.
Huge.
Okay.
She gets a job at a multinational call center in the Malad area, and eventually she rents a place of her own right there.
Good for her.
Right. But think about how often you or someone you know has done this. You move to a new city where you don't really know a soul. You're grasping for an anchor.
Yeah, that desire for connection is a universal human trait. We all have it. But it's also a highly exploitable one, unfortunately.
Exactly.
When you are untethered from your past, you are exceptionally vulnerable to anyone who offers you a sense of belonging.
And that is exactly when she meets a 28-year-old guy at her new office. His name is Aftab Poonawalla. And on paper, he is like the ultimate catch.
Oh, absolutely. He's charming. He speaks fluent, rapid-fire English, holds a management degree.
And he's a professionally trained chef, right?
Yes, from a 5-star hotel. So he presents this meticulously curated facade. He appears modern, sordid, deeply caring.
Right.
To Shraddha, who is carrying all this emotional exhaustion from her family life, Aftab doesn't just look like a new boyfriend. He looks like a sanctuary. He looks like a totally fresh start.
But this is where the narrative really shifts from, a young woman finding her independence to what we're calling the anatomy of isolation.
Right. Things change quickly.
Yeah. By 2019, Aftab suggests they move in together to save money.
Which is a very pragmatic, normal pitch.
Yeah. Super normal. So they rent a flat together in Malad. But then Shraddha decides she wants to marry him. So she goes back to Palghar to tell her mother.
And this triggers just a catastrophic fracture in her existing support network.
It really does. They came from different religious backgrounds. Shraddha was Hindu and Aftab was Muslim. And based on our sources, both families vehemently opposed the union, strictly on religious grounds.
Right. It was a mutual rejection from both sides.
Yeah. Her mother even brings in her estranged father to try and talk her out of it, but Shraddha refuses to yield.
The ensuing arguments push Shraddha to the absolute brink. In September 2019, she makes a definitive, tragic choice.
She cuts them off.
She does. She shouts at her parents, literally saying, "I have no family. Aftab is everything to me." She walks out. She stops taking their calls, stops visiting.
Wow.
Her entire safety net just evaporates in an instant. The only faint lifeline left is her younger brother, Shrije, who just quietly watches her Instagram stories to make sure she's okay.
When I look at this dynamic, I think of a spider web.
Okay, a spider web.
Yeah, because at first, when you're overwhelmed by family drama, someone offering you a quiet, separate shelter feels like a safety net.
Right, it feels supportive.
But once all the surrounding structural threads of that net are cut away, once your family and friends are gone, you realize you aren't in a net at all. You're in a trap.
That's a profoundly accurate way to visualize it. If we look at the clinical psychology of abuse, the abuser's primary foundational goal is isolation.
You have to get them alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You cannot control someone who has a strong, objective support system. And what's so insidious about this specific case is how Aftab weaponized the situation.
Yeah.
He didn't have to forcefully lock her away from her family. The societal pressures and the familial rejection did the heavy lifting for him.
So he basically outsourced the isolation.
He did. When a victim cuts off their own family to defend a relationship, the abuser gains absolute unchecked control.
Yeah.
And they do it without having to get their hands dirty.
Right. Shraddha willingly handed him the keys to her entire world because she honestly believed he was the only one on her side.
Which leaves her devastatingly exposed when tragedy strikes a few months later.
Yeah, in January 2020, Shraddha's mother unexpectedly dies of a heart attack.
It's just heartbreaking.
Shraddha is emotionally shattered. She attends the funeral, she weeps with her father, but then she returns to Aftab 100% dependent on him.
And that is the exact moment the relationship mutates. With her mother gone and her family estranged, she has nowhere else to go.
He's trapped.
She is fundamentally trapped.
Yeah.
And because she is, Aftab no longer needs to maintain that charming facade. The mask slips.
It doesn't just slip, it shatters. Aftab is unemployed. He sits at home while Shraddha works at the call center.
Right.
He uses her paycheck to fund his lifestyle, buying weed, forcing her to cover all the bills. He completely dismisses any talk of marriage, and she actually finds out he's actively using the dating app Bumble to meet other women.
And when she confronts him, the psychological abuse really begins. He gaslights her.
And for you listening, gaslighting isn't just lying, right?
No, not at all. It's a deliberate psychological manipulation that makes the victim question their own sanity. He makes her feel like her completely valid reactions to his cheating are actually signs that she is unstable.
Wow.
And inevitably, this psychological control escalates into severe physical violence.
There is a moment that really clarifies the terror she was living in. Shraddha called a friend one night, panicked. She explicitly said that Aftab had beaten her so badly that if she stayed with him that night, he was going to kill her.
Yeah.
She wanted to go to the police.
But she didn't. And we have to ask why. Why do people stay when they cognitively recognize a lethal threat?
Well, he used crocodile tears, right? He begged for forgiveness, promised to marry her, played the remorseful partner.
This is the neuroscience of trauma bonding. The brain is subjected to extreme spikes of cortisol and adrenaline during the abuse.
Just constant stress.
Exactly. But when the abuser suddenly switches to apologies and affection, what we call the honeymoon phase, the brain is flooded with dopamine. It's literally an addictive chemical cycle. The victim, who is completely isolated, desperately wants to believe the apology. Because accepting the alternative, that the person they sacrificed their entire family for is going to kill them, is psychologically impossible to process.
So to fix the relationship, to escape the constant fighting in Mumbai, Aftab suggests a fresh start.
Right.
In May 2022, they travel to Himachal Pradesh, and then on May 15th, they rent a flat in the Chhatarpur area of Delhi.
The classic geographical cure.
Yeah. Think about how often people do this on a smaller scale. You think a new apartment or a new city will fix a broken dynamic.
It's a very common thought process.
But moving cities to fix a toxic relationship is like painting over black mold.
Oh, yeah.
It looks clean, it smells like fresh paint, but the rot is still underneath, quietly eating away at the foundation.
That's a great analogy. From a psychological standpoint, moving to Delhi wasn't a fresh start at all. It was the final terminal stage of isolation. Right. Aftab framed it as a solution to their problems. But what he actually did was remove Shraddha's last remaining geographic familiarity. He stripped away the few friends she had left in Mumbai. She's now on completely alien turf, entirely reliant on him for survival.
Which sets the stage for the unthinkable just 3 days after they sign the lease.
3 days.
On the evening of May 18th, 2022, an argument breaks out over expenses. The fight turns physical. Aftab overpowers her, sits on her chest, and strangles her to death.
The violent act itself is incredibly tragic. But what happens in the immediate aftermath shifts this from a domestic